This FedGov Today program is sponsored by Billington Cybersecurity. On this edition of FedGov Today with Francis Rose, building an AI-enabled workforce at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. What's changed about the cybersecurity landscape in 2025? And a new maturity metric for human systems integration in DoD acquisition. How will the department ensure mission-critical systems are both technologically advanced and ready for the people who use them? Welcome to FedGov Today with Francis Rose. I'm George Jackson, sitting in for Francis this week. NGA has a unique and highly technical mission: deliver world-class geospatial intelligence to policymakers, service members, intel professionals, and first responders for their own analytical and operational needs. The technology that fuels that mission changes rapidly. Here to talk about its evolution, Mark Chatelain, NGA's Chief Information Officer and Director of IT Services. So talk about that mission, Mark. How is the cloud strategy at NGA evolving?
So our cloud strategy began back in 2014, 2015 timeframe when we were instructed to move all of our applications, all of our data into the cloud, to basically save money, to eliminate the data centers associated with our facilities. We found out very rapidly, though, that it was not the right thing to do. Some of those applications, some of that data needs to reside as close as possible to our analysts. And so what we did is we came up with a hybrid cloud model. And so again, with the hybrid cloud model, some of our applications went into the cloud, some of our applications stayed on our premises, or on-premises in our data centers. And then we chose kind of what to move where based on operational needs. That cloud contract was awarded to Amazon Web Services, and it's a sole source contract to Amazon through a competition, and they've been providing excellent capabilities for us over the past several years. However, the Director of National Intelligence desired to have that workload competed, to basically share that workload. It makes sense to have a shared workload or a multiple cloud capability to be able to leverage things like resilience, to leverage better pricing models and things like that. And so we're in the process right now of moving that or evolving that single cloud into a multiple cloud environment.
One of the key mission objectives is to meet the demand in high tempo operations, Mark. What does high tempo operations mean to NGA? How does scalability, resiliency, other factors impact delivering services to the warfighter at the speed of need?
Our warfighters are demanding customers, and they need data when they need it immediately. They need to be able to make decisions on the fly, and they need to have that data. If our systems are not operating at the optimum level, then they're not going to have that data when they need it. Our first responders are not going to have the data that they need when a wildfire strikes or when a flood hits. They're not going to be able to locate those people that are stranded. And so without the information that we provide, they are not going to be able to get that. And it has to happen in a real-time manner.
Zero trust architecture's also a big, critically important part of your portfolio. Talk about zero trust, the implementation inside NGA, what kind of results you're seeing right now?
So it's not about cybersecurity anymore. We're having to move to cyber resilience. Cyber actors around the world are basically coming up with all kinds of different things, different ways to attack us, to be able to stop us from providing the capabilities that we do to our policymakers, our warfighters, and our first responders. And so if we treat it as a cybersecurity issue, we're not going to be there in time to be able to prevent some things. So we've got to be resilient. We've got to put the necessary tools in place, the necessary precautions in place to be able to head off any of those cyber attacks.
Have you seen any impact on speed based off of new zero trust architectures move through NGA? I mean, you can't sacrifice speed for security based off of the mission that you're trying to deliver to the warfighter.
We absolutely can't detract from the capabilities we deliver to our warfighters. But again, you've got to put that cybersecurity in place. If you don't have that cyber resilience in place, you're not going to be able to provide those systems in time of need. So we have not seen any reductions or any delays within our performance capabilities because we ensure that. We develop systems that have that resilience built into them, but also are able to be performant.
What are some of the hardest parts of Zero Trust and employing it, the life cycle that it's on right now? I mean, we've had guidance from DoD, from the White House for a number of years now. Organizations have been employing it. Government has been studying it. What's the current state of that landscape? What's the current challenge that NGA or other organizations are still trying to address right now?
So we've been resourced well as far as being able to provide Zero Trust capabilities. Zero Trust is not just one thing. It's actually a myriad of things. Some of the things we've been implementing over the past 10 or 12 years within our enterprise. Some of those things are new types of things. For instance, artificial intelligence in the cybersecurity realm. It brings us another level of being able to detect bad actors coming into our system, to be able to react in real time and faster than real time, as opposed to having humans taking a look at those types of things. So that's probably the biggest challenge we have right now, is how we implement those AI models to be able to detect cyber attacks.
I had the opportunity, Mark, a number of years ago to actually go inside NGA headquarters. And at the time, open source intelligence was a big focus for the agency. You know, you have these commercial satellites that are much more accessible than ever before, and NGA recognized that. They read the tea leaves, they moved to integrate more and more open source intelligence. Could you talk about OSINT's importance to this discussion around Zero Trust and, you know, how you leverage that information to improve cybersecurity across the organization?
Open source intelligence gives us just another vehicle to be able to understand what's going on in the world. Again, we have agreements with commercial imagery providers to be able to provide us imagery. This is some sort of open source intelligence. We also have other open source type methods, understanding where cyber actors are playing, particular cybersecurity issues going on, and then we're able to take that information and blend that into our posture associated with keeping out those bad actors.
Artificial intelligence is where I want to close our interview today, Mark. Talk about the workforce. What, relative to tool adoption, to the integration of artificial intelligence into the workforce itself, looks like right now?
So as our director says, artificial intelligence and machine learning is more about teaching machines how to act like human beings, and that's the artificial intelligence piece of it. You think of artificial intelligence, at least in our domain, as being able to do image recognition, to be able to pick different aspects out of images and then present them to an analyst so that the analyst doesn't have to spend time looking at those images. We collect a lot of imagery every day. We pull in a lot of commercial imagery. We do not have the workforce to be able to look at every single image, so we're going to have to rely on something else, such as artificial intelligence. We could probably increase our workforce by 100-fold, and it wouldn't be good enough to be able to look at all of those images. So we've got to have some way of doing it. And so using artificial intelligence to look at that imagery is important. But that's not the only thing. We've talked about commercial imagery. We've talked about artificial intelligence as it works with cybersecurity. There's other types of things that we're investigating using artificial intelligence for. Just this week, we're rolling out the capability at NGA to have our workforce be able to leverage artificial intelligence to write their self-assessments.
Wow.
Have their supervisors be able to use that artificial intelligence to read those and to be able to actually go through and prepare performance plans. All of this will have to be human reviewed because you don't want artificial intelligence running our employees. You want the supervisors to be able to use it as a tool to be able to provide a much better evaluation of those employees.
Well, I'm going to evaluate this interview, Mark, as a home run. Mark Chatelain, Chief Information Officer, National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Sir, thanks so much.
Thank you, George. I appreciate it.
You can read more about NGA's approach to the cloud, zero trust, and an AI-enabled workforce on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, we're only 2 weeks away from the top government cybersecurity summit in the nation. I talk trends, best practices, and threats with the president of Billington Cybersecurity next. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment.
Join Defense Innovators August 27th through 29th in Washington, D.C. for the NDIA Emerging Technologies for Defense Conference, featuring top military leaders, classified briefings, and a new global defense hackathon. Register at ndiatechexpo.org. That's ndiatechexpo.org.
Welcome back. In 2 weeks, thousands of attendees and more than 200 speakers will flock to the Washington Convention Center to learn about the latest advances in and issues facing cybersecurity. We've got your sneak peek right here with Troy Schneider, president of Billington Cybersecurity. Troy, I watched your interview with last year leading up to the summit. You said AI was woven into nearly every conversation, either on stage or in the hallways. Anything different this year? Anything to the, nuance around cybersecurity and artificial intelligence?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, George. And yeah, it's getting harder and harder to sort of separate conversations about AI from cyber, from broader IT modernization. It's all one interrelated challenge. I think the big difference this year is that for a while the focus on AI and cyber was about the threats. Threats that how bad actors could use AI, risks that come with the AI models, and how to start to address those. I think you're seeing the conversation pivot. That's still very important and lots of challenges to address there. But there's a lot more talk and a lot more actual work being done on how to use AI to help the defenders and sort of leverages it as a tool, particularly for log analysis and other things. But there's a sense that maybe the benefits of it in the cyberspace will move pretty quickly to outweigh the risks.
What are we seeing right now relative to the priorities of the Trump administration in that cybersecurity lane? I mean, I mentioned the number of speakers at the Billington Summit this year. Big slice of leadership all across the board. What are some common themes that have emerged relative to the Trump administration's push for more secure operations?
Sure. I mean, yeah, we're really excited by the lineup. We've got both the politicals and the career folks. And as you know, cyber is a pretty nonpartisan space. So there's a lot of consistency about the themes and what's really important, what people are focused on. But I think at a high level, you've seen this administration focus on kind of sharing the load, tightening the focus of what CISA is supposed to do and maybe putting more of that responsibility back on state and local governments in some ways. There's definitely some talk about thinking about holistic cybersecurity or offensive cybersecurity of how to have a little bit of active deterrence in that space. And they're certainly leaning hard into how to use AI as a tool in the toolbox for broader cybersecurity.
I'm going to steal on that phrase, holistic cybersecurity. Sure. The landscape is much more international than it's ever been, certainly reflected in this year's agenda. I mean, you have speakers from the UK, from Australia, from Canada. I do want to reference his name because without reading it, I would totally butcher it, but I'm most excited about Ivan Kalabashkin. He's the deputy head of the cyber department for the Security Service of Ukraine. What do you expect the U.S. public sector is going to get out of some of these international speakers? Sure.
Well, I mean, a couple things there. With Ukraine in particular, it has taught us so much about modern warfare, unfortunately in a lot of ways. But one of those lessons is how cyber is being woven in, and it's just another domain. And we've known that. That's why the U.S. has Cyber Command. But to see in real time how cyber attacks, how cyber defense efforts are playing into more traditional kinetic warfare, it is, unfortunately, a learning lab for modern conflict. So that's for the Ukraine example in particular. But internationally, it just comes down to that cliche that cyber is a team sport. We've also got a lot of state, local officials there, and of course the industry partners. There's very little about cybersecurity that can be limited to just DoD or just FedCiv. It's going to involve our allied nation partners. It's going to involve state and local critical infrastructure. And so what we see is that our attendees and our speakers, they're just very excited to be able to compare notes and trade ideas with people who are facing similar challenges from different perches in government.
Troy Schneider, President, Billington Cybersecurity. Good luck with this year's summit,
Thanks,
Troy.
George. Appreciate it.
You can read more about the 16th Annual Billington Cybersecurity Summit on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Up next, a refresh for NASA's technology readiness level, decades in the making. DoD's new version puts humans at the center of the equation. FedGov Today with Francis Rose continues in a moment.
I was talking with one of our global AI leads at the firm, and they were talking specifically about how their clients are seeing such different potential outcomes. And we hear a lot from luminaries in the field, and each of them have a very specific idea of what's going to happen, but we don't think any of it's predisposed. And what struck me is how much potential impact government decisions today are going to have on those outcomes. And maybe not peanut butter spread, but in very specific ways across different industries. And so we took that concept and we really thought about what are the mechanisms by which government decisions are going to influence that, and what can we kind of help educate our clients on from an outcomes perspective.
Welcome back. This month, the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering announced the adoption of a new standard designed to make software work better for soldiers and minimize risks to cost, schedule, and performance. Chris DeLuca is Director of Specialty Engineering in the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for R&E. Chris, welcome. Good to see you, sir.
I appreciate you having me here today.
So take me back in time, even before these standards were a glimmer in your eye. What was that lightning bolt to inspiration? Why did you undertake this effort in the first place?
Well, we are, first of all, focused on the soldier. And right now, we're focused on putting advanced technology into the hands of our warfighters as quickly as possible. But to do that, we have to build their trust. And when we put it in their hands, we'd like it to be ready for them. We've been participating in this development of this standard since 2021.
Oh.
The Navy actually sat on the committee that developed the standard. The services, along with OSD, were part of the group that reviewed the standard before it was issued. In the intervening years, we've been involved in assessing it, but not adopting it till this point. At this point, the senior leadership decided it was time to formally adopt it, give it that level of credibility, and start to push it out there at the level of our technology readiness assessments and our manufacturing readiness assessments.
Chris, I mentioned at the top two, I'll call them broad goals: minimize risk and improve mission outcomes. You know, aligning people to those two fits a lot of different technological areas. I think cybersecurity, right off the bat. You don't want to slow things down, but you certainly want to make them more secure. Talk about those two broad goals and how HRLs might improve both those functions.
If you apply the HRLs early, you're looking at opportunity, not risk. You're evaluating what your failure modes might be, what your hazards might be, and you're either designing the system for the warfighter, human-centered design, or you're deciding on mitigations that might be applied for what will become risks and issues to them, where you can't design it in, or later on, when you find that you have a hazard that you didn't know about, design it out.
I was reading in the press release that R&E put out relative to human readiness levels that you took a lot of cues from the 1970s, work that NASA was doing on technology readiness levels. Could you marry those two together for me? Tell me what you learned from NASA's effort and maybe what you had to spin up from scratch, because I'd imagine, while there are some similarities between those two mission sets, OUSD's mission set is very different from NASA's mission.
I would not say that. We work very closely with NASA. As a matter of fact, NASA was part of developing this standard as well. The idea of understanding your user and creating something that's more intuitive, more habitable for your user, those things that NASA has to do for its astronauts in space, we have to do for our warfighters in their warfighting space.
What about early in the design process? I mean, you're an engineer by trade, Chris. Is that one of the key goals of HRLs, is to get them right in there at the foundation level?
That's absolutely true. As I mentioned earlier, the idea is seizing the opportunity to design in the features that are best for the user, and if you happen to know about failure modes or hazards or defects, design those out as early as possible. The later you wait in the process, the more expensive it's going to be. The discovery might be somebody's life or a mission failure. You don't want those things to happen. You want to try and get in front of those.
One of my favorite phrases in the release that OUSD R&E put out, I'm going to read it off here, the Human Factors Ergonomics Society. What is that? It sounds like you worked pretty closely with them. What did you learn from the Human Factors Ergonomics Society, sir?
So the Human Factors Ergonomics Society, which includes folks from DoD, the rest of the federal government, industry, and academia, provide a huge body of knowledge about the human, first of all. Next, they apply the American National Standards Institute process for developing a standard. We marry those two up and we come out with a usable standard that can be generally applied to different use cases.
The Army has started using HRLs. Could you talk about that initial adoption, how it's going, or what you're hearing about it, and maybe what it could lead to? What will that germinate for the department overall?
We've reached out not only to the Army but to the other services to see what their experiences have been. They have all come back and said that early application is the most important application of the standard. Later on in the process, it becomes more difficult to take what you learn and apply it. However, later on in the process, you've learned stuff that where your capability is somehow decremented by what you learn. So while what you learn might become more expensive to correct, you still have to do it. So it's sort of a double-edged sword. Again, what we have learned from surveying the services is early application is very important.
The Army is such a large organization with a lot of different components. Was it challenging to make sure that they were all marshaled in the right direction relative to human readiness levels, or did you have sort of a single point of contact in there that was kind of the Army champion for helping to push this out?
There is an Army champion for HRLs. As a matter of fact, there's a group that specifically supports human systems integrations assessments for the Army. They work with us and the other services in the Joint Human Systems Integration Working Group, which works for the steering committee of the DoD for human systems integration. So this year, the steering committee told us to focus on adopting this standard. The working group, this year led by the Navy, championed us doing this adoption. But what we took were lessons learned from the Army. And by the way, the Air Force is building a decision tool from this standard.
Wow.
That uses both the technology readiness levels and the human readiness levels and provides a decision tree. So we're starting to get that energy out there. That energy has to come first from our centralized practitioners and the leadership. This adoption, giving the standard credibility, will help us push it out to the rest of the practitioners, to the programs, and the leadership.
How do you hope that the other services ultimately will use this for measurement, Chris, to measure risk, to measure outcomes? How can they take HRLs and put tangible, numbers-based stuff against it?
So if you're starting early, it helps you plan your activities throughout the rest of your program and resource them. But you know, today we're getting a lot of prototypes or products that are off the shelf that we in the government, or DoD, haven't seen before. Now, this is a commercial standard. That helps reduce a barrier. Anybody bringing a product to us that might be a prototype or something that we might start to use off the shelf, if they can bring to us evidence that they've met at least HRL 6, ready for development, or maybe an HRL 8, which is ready to be used in an operational environment initially, then we would be better off getting that evidence instead of having to go out and discover it ourselves. Also, early in a program, or even if we get a prototype later, it helps us decide what to test. Testing is expensive and it takes time. Being able to focus on the risks and the issues and the things that are most important to the mission for the human can be guided by the HRL.
Chris DeLuca, Director of Specialty Engineering, OUSD R&A. Chris, thanks so much, sir. You can read more about the standard for human readiness levels on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com. Program continues in a moment.
Innovation doesn't wait, and neither do we. At Maximus, we solve problems, streamlining operations, delivering solutions at speed and scale that drive measurable results. From strategy to execution, we simplify complexity, building trust through expertise and innovative technology. Every service, every time. Efficient government delivered. We don't follow innovation, we drive it. Maximus.
Welcome back. In today's event spotlight, you already looked behind the curtain. Now it's time to register for the 16th annual Billington Cybersecurity Summit. It's 2 weeks away. Cybersecurity leaders from the military, the intelligence community, and civilian agencies will be at the Washington Convention Center September 9th through the 12th. The lineup includes almost every major name in the federal cyber community. See it for yourself and save your seat by registering at fedgovtoday.com. FedGov Today TV returns next Sunday morning at 10:30 with a look inside the Army's data revolution with their Chief Information Officer, Leo Garciga. In for Francis Rose, I'm George Jackson. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.